Hello, class. I'm Dr. Susan Pierce, Associate Professor of Sociology, and I want to welcome you to this class. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you. And let's see if our technology works. I know this is a very unusual semester. We're going to do the best we can with it. And I know that this is a hard time for many of you. Some of you may have family members, friends who are on the front lines. Some of you may have lost someone to COVID, and if so, we're with you here at ECU. We're thinking about you. We want this to be a good semester for you, and let us know how we can help. I hope that all of you will also prioritize your own physical health as well as your mental and emotional health. Please feel free to reach out to me if you're having any struggles, and we will do what we can. This is the capstone course, the senior seminar for all of you who are sociology majors. And it is, for some of you, going to be the last semester. Some of you, it might be what we call the penultimate semester, next to the last, but I see that we have several juniors in the class as well. So some of you will be with us for a little bit longer. I want to welcome all of you. You are all welcome, and all will be integrated at the same level. It doesn't matter which class you're in. This course, as I mentioned in the email, sometimes there are rumors that this course is a resume writing course, and that's all. And I can see how when you read the catalog copy, you could come away with that impression, or maybe if you've talked to students who've taken it before. That is one part of this course. There is career development and helping you think about your future. But it is much more than that. A capstone course is also a summary, in a way, a kind of integration of what you've learned in your third or fourth year as a sociologist. So we're going to be going through a lot of that with you. It's also a writing intensive course, as I mentioned, so you will be writing a long paper. I know to some of you it's going to be a long paper because sometimes students do not have a lot of writing assignments in class, but I have to tell you, I just looked up capstone course papers online and found, I think at Harvard, your capstone paper is 45 pages long. So yours will not be that long. And I think that's mainly for honors students. So let me say a little bit about who I am. And I have also opened a discussion board post for you to go ahead and introduce yourself to your classmates because I'd like you to get to know each other as much as you can. As I mentioned that this is going to be asynchronous likely, but I am sending out a new doodle poll because someone asked if we could see if there are any evening times that we could meet. I'm open to that, so depending on the evening. So I have put together a poll and I will be sending that link out. So we need everybody to respond to it, however, because if we get 21 responses rather than 22, then we shouldn't make a decision without knowing what everybody's preferences are. If we find that there are 2 times or 3 times across the week where, for example, we could meet in 2 or 3 groups, that's fine with me. I'm open to that. So something about me, I am a 13th year, I think, here in the sociology department. I came in 2008, and this has been a very nice journey here. I've really enjoyed being at ECU, and actually this is my second time to live in North Carolina. I lived here in the late 70s and early 80s, and then moved to New York City, and I miss North Carolina very much. I love New York too, so I'm not dissing New York. But when I moved up there, I missed the beautiful beaches. I missed the Western mountains. And part of what I actually missed was the college atmosphere in the state. There's such a nice community of university and college students here that in New York, it's there, but it gets swallowed up by all the other noise in the city. So 3 cheers for North Carolina. I also wanted to just give you a little background. I came originally from Mississippi. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and mainly grew up in Mississippi where my family was. And by the time I was 16, however, we moved up to the Washington, D.C. area because my father was in the government. and I finished high school in Fairfax, Virginia, started 2 years of college there at George Mason University, and then I returned to Mississippi for my last 2 years of college in a liberal arts college called Mississippi College. I then received a Master of Divinity degree, and that's when I came back to North Carolina. And then after moving to New York and working for a while in the nonprofit sector, I worked in a women's organization that was working on changing the workplace for women, trying to help equalize things in the workplace. I went back to school and got my master's and PhD in sociology. And the university I went to is called the New School for Social Research. So that's a little of my educational background. My dissertation was about at that time, recently discovered or recovered African burial ground in Lower Manhattan. And I'm not an archaeologist, but what I did was an ethnographic study to write about and try to understand what the meaning of that site is for people today, especially descendant community members, some of the battles that went on over what to do with that site. And it's now actually memorialized. You can visit it. There's a visitor center. It's a longer story that I can talk to you about later this semester. I then, after my PhD, had the opportunity to teach at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania for 2 years, actually while I was finishing my PhD. And then I had an opportunity to go over to Poland, and I got to teach there for 5 years. So I was at University of Gdańsk up on the Baltic Sea coast for 4 years, and 1 year I was in Warsaw at an international university. Came back to the United States, and I did some activism for a while. I took a break from academia. So you'll hear me talk about that because that's how I got into trying to be an advocate for immigrant women. This was right after 9/11, so you probably have heard that there was a lot of xenophobia. There was a lot of talk of closing the borders, and it was a time that immigration and immigrants needed a lot of attention and understanding and advocacy. I then returned and went back to academia and got to teach at West Virginia University for 3 years. And I know they were our football rival for a while here at ACU. I don't think that we're in the same conference anymore, but somebody who knows football would know more about that than me. But I do remember the ECU used to lose to WVU, and then when I moved here, my first year, we actually won. And there was celebration in the streets around where I live in the Tar River neighborhood here. I started as an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology and then got promoted to associate professor. I've also been graduate director for the department, and one semester I was chair of the department. We're now very fortunate to have our new chair, Kristen Myers. I hope you've gotten to meet her, get to know her, maybe take a class with her. So let's talk a little about the class. I'm going to go through some things on the syllabus, and feel free to shoot back any questions over email to me, anything that's not clear. I'm glad to help you. So I want to say that we're going to certainly maintain our flexibility because there's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's sudden change, so we may not know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. But I have been talking to my colleagues who taught in Block 1. I didn't teach in Block 1. And it sounds like the courses went pretty well. So I'm hopeful that this might be a good opportunity for us. I think if I were a student, I might appreciate something like this, at least from time to time, because it allows me to concentrate on fewer classes at the same time. And also, there's less time between the beginning of the semester and the end. So by the time you get to the final exam, you haven't necessarily forgotten what you learned 15 weeks earlier. So there are certainly some advantages to this. There may be some challenges. And one of them, I will admit, is that this is a writing intensive course. And that's going to be something that I am very sensitive to. We do want to give you writing intensive credit, so I can't change that. But I'm doing what I can to make sure that you have enough time to stretch the writing across the semester. You have time to get the assignments done. And in fact, you can go ahead and get started as soon as you want to if you want to get ahead. I have arranged 4 class meetings per week. So I want to try to simulate being in class as much as possible, and that is to put together modules that are Monday through Thursday. And you can access them anytime after they're posted, but you need to attend these through your discussion board. So I'm going to post a PowerPoint for each module. Sometimes there's a link to a video, a movie, a podcast, other information. I may have guest speakers. So those will be going up regularly. And so I'm asking you to post 3 times per week. So what I've decided to do is to have one discussion board for the whole week instead of separate discussion boards for each modules, because it's such a crunched time period that we're in. So I'm asking you to post your response to my discussion question for any of the 4 modules. The earlier in the week, the better, obviously, but it can be any of those. And then I want you to respond to the others in your group. So respond to a second and third person in your group. And you can go beyond that. You don't have to stop. What I want to get going is a meaningful exchange. I want you to deepen the discussion. And so don't see this just as an assignment, but think of it as simulating the class experience. If you were in the full class or in a small group, sitting in the class, and you had the time to delve into whatever this is, how would you do it? Okay, so this is really, for the most part, this is for this to be a learning experience for you. Because if we were sitting in class together, I would probably be having circle time, what we call circle time, which is, this is a seminar. This is something where it's more of an exchange than a lecture type of situation. So I want to hear from you as much as possible. My lectures, these PowerPoints, they may have other ways for you to participate, such as ungraded quizzes, surveys that I might embed in those as well. So all that to say, keep on top of the modules. I will start the discussion post next week, with the exception of the one that I just put up, which is the one where I would like you to post about yourself, to introduce yourself to your classmates. I have an open door policy. Please contact me anytime. If you contact me at 3 a.m., you won't hear immediately, but feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'm going to have office hours on Canvas. I'm going to set up a kind of an open window where you can come in and we can meet. I may actually open it in Teams, so we could actually have face-to-face meetings if you would like on Thursdays from 10 to 12 in the morning. I can also do that by appointment, so we can talk by phone, over Teams, various types of formats that we can use. Be sure to continue to check Canvas for announcements and updates, just in case there's something that happens, like an adjustment to the calendar. If a hurricane came through and we closed, since we're not on campus, we may or may not continue to meet. Some of you may be living out of the coast, so it might be that we would have to kind of close down for a while. So just keep in touch with that. And obviously, if your power goes out because of a hurricane, you're not going to be able to keep on top of Canvas. I realize that. All right, there are 2 required books. Abigail Andrews' Undocumented Politics, Gender and the Pathways of Mexican Migrants, a relatively recent book, and it won I think a runner-up in an award for the International Migration section of the American Sociological Association. So it's a very interesting book. We're going to be using that later in the semester, so if you haven't gotten it yet, and if the bookstore doesn't have it yet, don't worry, you'll see on the syllabus where we're using it. The other one is the context reader, and that one we're starting with very soon, so please get that. I will go ahead and scan the first readings for you for the first day, so in case you're still getting the book. But I wanted to point something out, read this on the syllabus, that this book is a compilation of articles that were originally published in the sociology magazine Contexts. If you're not familiar with that, it's a magazine that was started a few years back to try to be kind of like Psychology Today, and that is to be something that a general audience might read and get to know what sociologists are doing. So the library subscribes to this, and therefore you should be able to pull up all the articles that are reproduced in that book from from our library website. I can't say for sure. I haven't checked every article, and it could be that they may have changed some of the articles. I don't know. But I think that they should be basically the same. So if you want to save money and want to go to the trouble to look those up, you can go to this portal here and see the titles of all the chapters and then search the library website by title. So feel free to try that. I know it's not a cheap book, but it might be the kind of book that you'll want to keep because it's got such a variety of articles in it, recent articles, and some of them from some very well-known scholars. This might serve you in the future, whatever you do. There may be some other readings that I've assigned that I'll be posting for you. There's a long section here about writing intensive, and I'd like you to read that on your own, but pay attention to this portfolio that you probably already have opened, and you're going to be submitting one piece to that portfolio. I assume that's going to be your final paper, your research paper that you're doing for this class. Please pay attention to some of the items on the website like academic integrity. I have to be very careful and make sure that I'm looking out for cheating, plagiarizing, falsifying. When you're writing, you have to be very careful that you are not reproducing word for word something that you don't have in quotation marks. I'm sure you're all familiar with this by now, but it's a very serious offense, and I need to make sure that you are paying attention to that. Diversity, we are very pro-diversity, and you can see a statement on the Department of Sociology website that says the ECU Department of Sociology is committed to the understanding of and respect for human diversity across races, nationalities, religions, ethnicities, ages, genders, sexualities, regions, languages, and physical and mental abilities. And we also have a more recent statement against racism in light of the events of this year. So please check that out. We are also, one thing I'm doing in my classes now is to read a land acknowledgement statement. So you may hear me talk about this and read it across the semester. And this is something that has been happening in Canada for a long time. There are also people in the United States who've been doing this for a number of years. And it is time, I think, for ECU and Greenville to make these statements because we are living on land that used to belong to other people. And so the land acknowledgement is we acknowledge the Tuscarora people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to the land, water, and air that Greenville consumes. We pay respect to 8 recognized tribes: Kohari, Eastern Band of Cherokee, Haliwa Saponi, Lumbee, Meherrin, Occaneechi Band of Saponi, and Waccamaw Siouan, all nations and their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm curious if we have people of Native American descent in our class, and would like to hear your responses to that, if so. The syllabus also talks about netiquette, so make sure that you are keeping in mind the rights and feelings of everyone in the class. Think about people you're writing about who may or may not be present. And I think as sociologists, you are sensitive to this, but I want to just give you a gentle reminder of it. The grading scale. I use a traditional 100-point grading scale. So this is different from some professors who have points that all add up to, 1,000, 2,000, I don't know what. Mine get averaged. So each assignment's worth 100 points. They're averaged together. So for example, your average for the end of the semester is going to be 100 points. You hope that it will be 100 points, right? That it will average up to something within 100 points and not higher than that. So I'm going to give you rubrics. I do appreciate originality, thoughtfulness, strong research, and I'll talk more about what I want to see in your assignments. Be aware that ECU is offering a pass-fail option because of COVID, and this grade will not be averaged into your GPA, but a pass grade will give you your 3 earned hours for this course, and your academic transcripts will say that there was a major disruption because of the pandemic. So keep that in mind, but we strongly advise that you discuss this with your advisor before you make this decision. Find out how this is going to impact you. Some of you may be going on to graduate school, and you might want to think about what that might mean for your transcript for graduate school. So the course requirements, all the assignments that are on the syllabus are due by 11:59 p.m. on the due date, and you're going to be submitting them through Safe Assign. So I'll put up a portal for you to do that. And here are the assignments. Resume and cover letter is going to be 10% of your grade. You're going to be giving me 2 drafts of that. The primary focus is going to be your research paper, a 14 to 15 page research paper, and you've got 3 choices of topics for that. And I'm choosing these for you. We have a short time together, so there's no time for you to play around with different subjects. Okay, so you can choose between social activism for justice for African Americans prior to the current year. Why prior to the current year? Because part of the writing intensive course is to teach you to use reputable sources. And even though they're journalism, newspapers are pretty reputable. For the most part, we don't yet have actually peer-reviewed academic research on the current protests that are going on. But we have plenty of books and articles about the civil rights movement, about the anti-slavery movement, about other movements for justice, about the Black Power movement, for example. So choose something within that, and then I want you to narrow the focus, okay? That topic, social activism for justice for African Americans, could fill a library, right? So narrow that down. Think of something, start looking for articles, and start thinking about how you can focus that down to something more manageable for a very short semester. Your second one is to analyze a previous pandemic or transnational epidemic before COVID-19. Again, we don't yet have sociological research on COVID-19 and the impact on society, but there are articles and books about previous pandemics. So check that out, and again, narrow it down, focus it down to maybe one city, one country. We're going to be reading about the 1918 flu pandemic this semester, so that's one that you might want to choose. Narrow it down to something like the impact on the education institutions or the health institutions or on gender. So try to narrow that down. And then the third one is migration and gender or sexuality, and this can be to or from anywhere in the globe. It can be past or present. And we're going to be reading about that in the book that I chose. This is something I also research. And again, narrow it down, something that is doable, right, that you can find literature on. You're also going to do 2 very interesting reflection papers, and that is you're going to look up a sociology professor's article of your choice. It can be me, it can be anyone in our department. You can go to the website right now and find the CVs, the curriculum vitas of our professors. Find some article that you find interesting. Look it up, read it, and you're going to write a reflection paper, and I will be giving you the instructions on what you're going to do with that. The first one, you are going to read that article, and your reflection is going to be about what the professor's method was, and if you were to do the same study and use a different research method, how would you do that? Same study, different research method. And then the second one, you're going to choose another professor's article, and you're going to write about if you were to do a completely different study but using the same method of that professor, what would you do? And I'll be sending you more instructions about that. Then you're going to get to do a short video about your final paper that will be shared with class. If we were all together, you would be standing up in front of the class and talking and telling people about it, but because of where we are, it's going to be on video. You can do that on your phones. You can do it on, I'm using QuickTime on Mac, whatever is accessible to you. Let me know if you have problems with access to technology to do that. Class attendance and participation on discussion boards is going to be 20% of your grade, And then there's only going to be one exam. It'll be a final essay exam, and you will be getting um, it will be cumulative, and you will be getting a study guide for that. So I won't go through everything in the schedule, but as you can see, we're going to cover a lot of different areas of sociology. So it's going to be a nice overview of all of the topics that you learned in your introductory class, and maybe some of them you got to take specialized electives about, some of you didn't. So maybe some of you have taken courses in marriage and family, race and ethnicity, health, education, right? But this is going to be a way to learn what some of the researchers are saying and writing about these particular issues now. And what you're reading is kind of magazine-style articles about research studies that were done. So they are written in a more accessible style than some of those studies. As I mentioned, October 15th, we're going to talk about the 1918 pandemic. And then we're going to move into resumes and cover letters. I've given you some websites to help you with working on that, and I'll also be guiding you through that. Then we're going to work on talk about something that is called public sociology, and I've given you something that I've written about, what does it mean to reach out and try to write for a general audience where you might have some kind of policy impact with your work as a sociologist. We are going to then move in October 29th. This one we'll start reading the Undocumented Politics book, so make sure you have it by then. And you will be working very hard on your research paper at that point. Your video presentation is due to me on November 9th. And we will be spending the last 3 class sessions actually viewing the student video presentations and basically giving feedback to one another. So that is the syllabus. I would like to just go over a few other things for you. One thing is that what are we trying to accomplish as a writing intensive course? One thing I hope for you is that you're going to become more confident in your writing. You are going to be able to critically review your own writing and see how you can improve it. You're going to also, I'd like you to think about what type of professional writing you're going to be doing in your future and take your own initiative to look up what skills you need to develop to do that type of writing well. It will save you a lot of time in your future, right, to work on your writing now. There will be not only drafts, but self-assessments. That's part of our writing instruction guidelines from the Writing Center. So I will give you information about what you need to do, but what you're going to do is write some memos that say, this is how I made a decision about how to write this particular paper. You're going to hear me bring in some of my own interests into the class. One is I want us to think globally. A lot of our sociology in the United States is quite domestically focused, so that's one thing that I think needs to change. So you're going to hear me try to expand our understanding more globally. I'm also a cultural sociologist, so you'll hear me focus on culture quite a bit in a lot of ways. So a lot of ways that culture is very important to what's going on now in our society. I'm also, you'll hear me talk about public sociology and getting involved in more kind of critical work to try to move the needle forward and change things in society. A lot of what we're reading is going to be empirical work. It's not going to be so theoretical, but you'll hear me integrate some theories into the class, and some of your authors will be integrating theories as well. So that's something that I hope will help you to try to think about the frameworks of why and how we're doing the research that we do. So I want to end by saying that it's my pleasure to be your professor this semester. We're going to be working with some new technology. Canvas is still pretty new for me. I got to practice on my introductory students this summer, so I'm a little bit ahead of the game, but you never know what might go wrong because it is a bit of a complicated platform. At least it has a lot of bells and whistles, and I think that's what some people are running into, is figuring out which bells and whistles to use for what. So be patient with that. And I'll end with a funny story, which is that a few years ago, back when computers used to have the DOS um, format, you probably don't remember this, but there would be, if your computer blanked out on you, you got a blank screen and you just got some words, usually nonsense words that made no sense at all. So my father's computer had blanked out and he didn't know what was wrong with it. And he's sitting there staring at it. My mom and I are standing behind him trying to help him out. And on the screen, all it says is sing serial port. And so that's what we did. We sang serial port, and guess what? The computer worked. So if you're having a hard time with technology, try to sing, see if that helps. Okay, I will see you on Canvas. Don't forget to go to Doodle Poll. Let me know if we can meet some evening, and I will see you soon. Thank you.